All right, hello everybody. Welcome back. We're going to go ahead and get started. Today is June 15th, 2023. This is episode number 73. We're going to be talking about qualifying luxury clients today. I have some housekeeping to get to, and I want to introduce our sponsor before we get to our guest. So let's go ahead and get started. For anyone who's new today, just a couple of reminders. You can switch into speaker view on your Zoom, and that's going to be the way to get the best viewing experience. And also the chat on the bottom right is open, and it's going to be open throughout the next 45 minutes or so. We'd love to take questions, take comments. So if you do have anything to say and add to the discussion, please don't be shy. Go ahead and drop it in there, and we'll do our best to sort of involve it as we go along. I also want to thank everyone who came out a couple weeks ago to talk about onboarding clients. That was really a fun episode to do. If you want to check it out, that episode and all of our previous episodes, they're all available for free on demand on our YouTube channel. We're going to drop a link in the chat to the YouTube channel there. There's a whole lot of content on there. There's some audio stuff, some video stuff. It's a really good resource if you want to hear some commentary on the industry, or if you want to get some information on a specific topic or hear from another travel advisor. If you want to head over there, you can also help us out a whole lot by subbing to that channel, interacting, liking videos, things like that. That really helps us to continue to grow this community and bring you these episodes every couple of weeks. So that link's in the chat now. And yeah, if you have some time, we'd love for you to head over there. And then my last announcement before I welcome today's sponsor is that we'll be back here after a short summer break on July 13th. Our team here at Travel Market Report, we're throwing our own conference in Toronto next week, the Travel Marketplace East. So we're taking a little break from these, but we'll be back here on July 13th. So please keep an eye out for registration for that session. And I hope to see you all come back in a few weeks then too. All right, we're going to admit the rest of these people from the waiting room, but yeah, I'm really happy today to welcome our sponsor, Explorer Journeys and Jonathan Hamill. Explorer has been such a great partner of ours for the last couple of these sessions. We've met a lot of their sales team, and I'm really happy to introduce Jonathan for everyone on the call right now.
Great, thank you so much. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Greeting from gloomy Los Angeles today. Delighted to be here. This might be our last get together here before we launch officially 31 days from today. But today I'm delighted that you're going to hear from Steve Schulen. Steve, in addition to being a personal friend of mine, has been one of the early supporter and adopter of Explorer Journeys. Himself and I will be on the inaugural this coming July, and he has clients joining us as well. So we're quite excited. And for me, I'm excited for you to hear from him, because he's the perfect example of how you can match your luxury client with the correct supplier, with the correct experience, to make sure that you become truly that advisor that your client trusts when they come to you for a vacation discussion. And you're going to hear from Steve that has a lot of insight for you. But first of all, I have 2-3 minutes to give you some updates on Explorer Journeys. So first of all, as I mentioned, the countdown is on. We're counting the days. A month from today, on July 17, will be our inaugural from Southampton, UK, to Copenhagen, doing the beautiful Norwegian fjords. If you have some last-minute client that wants to go to Europe this summer, we do have some suite left on the inaugural. So please send them our way. It's going to be a wonderful experience and one of a lifetime opportunity to be on an inaugural on a brand new luxury lifestyle brand. For those of you that have been kind of waiting and say, oh, I'm going to wait to see Explorer Journey be on the water before I really promote it, before I talk about it to my client, well, the ship is on the water. Explorer One is floating. All of our hosts are living on the ship right now, and they are getting trained and rehearsing. I saw some photos earlier this morning of a mixology class they're doing. This afternoon, they did a wine seminar as well. So they are learning and getting ready for July 17. So the time is now. Don't wait anymore to talk about Explorer Journey. It's happening next week. Our latest update, we just announced last week our wonderful partnership with Rolex. So we're going to have the first Rolex boutique at sea. It's never been done in the cruise industry before. So we're quite excited to have that. And also our first guest chef for our restaurant anthology, where we welcome 2 and 3 Michelin star chefs for residents that will last 4 to 5 months. Our first chef is Mauro Uliassi, who has a 3 Michelin star restaurant on the Adriatic coast of Italy. His restaurant was just named the number 12 restaurant in the world on the new top 50 list. So if you have those foodies in your database, those clients that seek those Michelin star experiences everywhere that they travel, this will be the experience for them. And we'll rotate our guest chef, as I said, on a 4 to 5 month basis. So stay tuned for more announcement there. And lastly, you might have saw in the trade last week, our new Pioneer program. So once you make one reservation with us, and you have until the end of the year to make that first booking with Explora Journeys, you became a pioneer. So you have a pioneer status with Explora Journeys. And then it unlocks a series of benefits for your clients, but also for yourself. You get that invitation to come and experience Explora Journeys yourself with a guest on one of our Insider First Look educational trip. So many of you have been reaching out about wanted to join us and come experience Explora Journeys. That's your opportunity. Just make that one first booking with us, and then you will get on board. But I know our time is short today, and we're going to continue to have so many other announcements as we launch, as we continue this summer. So please make sure that you are signed up and engage with us on our Travel Advisor Center. So go on our website, just simply at explorajourneys.com. At the top right, you will see Travel Advisor, and please sign up to be part of our community. Once you sign up, please agree to receiving our newsletters. They are full of information because we want you, our travel advisor, to be the first one to know. Don't get blindsided by a client that knows more about us than you do. So please sign up, and we look forward to engaging with all of you. Myself, our entire commercial sales team is there to assist you with whatever you need. And now I'm going to turn it back to Daniel and a wonderful conversation with Steve. Thank you so much for having us again.
Yeah, thank you, Jonathan. And again, we've had a lot of the sales team on these series, and it's sort of been an incredible to sort of get a front row seat to this rollout. And I'm sure a lot of people are excited. We did drop the link to the advisor portal or to the website in the chat if anyone's looking for that. But thank you, Jonathan. And we're going to go ahead now and introduce our guests for today's episode. I know Jonathan mentioned him, but we're really, really excited and really happy to have Stephen Shulam here to talk to us a little bit about luxury clients. I know, Stephen, I know that Jonathan gave you a short introduction, but I was hoping you could sort of introduce yourself to the audience we have on the call with us today. You might be on mute. It's all right.
How are we doing? You got me there?
We got you there.
Cool. All right. Well, I've been in this business for 32 years. This has been a crazy last few years. There were moments where I thought maybe I was going to have to force to be retired because of COVID. Focused mostly on luxury cruises, definitely at the high end. Agency has been based in Santa Barbara, but my clients have been mostly from the East Coast. I really jokingly tell people I couldn't find people in Santa Barbara that want to leave. So I would focus more on areas of the United States where clients feel like they need to get out in the summer, they need to get out in the wintertime, and they really can see the value in spending some good money. So it's basically been a very small company. I've had, 2-3 people running with me. I sell, bad years have been 3 million, good years have been 7-8 million, and just really focus on clients that are looking for added value when they want to book a cruise.
Okay. And I know we have a lot to get to, and I want to talk about your recent travels too, but I just have a couple of quick questions. You mentioned you have a lot of your clients are the other end of the country compared to where you have your agency. I'm just curious, how did that work? How did that become part of your agency's sort of business?
So when I started the company 32 years ago, I used to advertise in the New York Times, and I'd have a little tiny ad that was in the New York Times, and it would say like Windstar, Seabourn, Radisson, Seven Seas cruises at up to 50% off. So, back then, in order to get the phone to ring, it was all about the deal, call this agency so you could, save some money. And what happened is that those people that called me were impressed that I had been on these ships, that I knew my stuff, and they would just tell their friends. And so this is why, after all these years, honestly, most of my clients are in that back east, New York. A lot of them are retired down to Florida. I also jokingly say that my average client's between 70 and death. And I'm really kind of a little concerned that my clients are getting old. And it is becoming a bit of a challenge because you obviously get more cancellations as people are getting a little bit older, but I am getting some of their clients as, I'm sorry, some of their kids as clients. So I am getting a younger generation, but it's still mostly much older people that are my clients.
All right. And then the other thing I wanted to ask, just because you started your career doing this segment, is, well, how did you land on doing luxury cruises or the luxury segment in general? I mean, what drew you to that, and how did that sort of develop as you entered the industry?
So I guess it goes all the way back to my previous career, which I was a celebrity wedding photographer. And I just loved that whole high end of the wedding market. So it was my wife and I, the bigger the wedding, the better. If there were 40 bridesmaids, and not 40, but 30 people in the bridal party, was at the Four Seasons Biltmore, and they were spending $100,000. That was a way easier job than photographing, 2 people at the courthouse. But what I did, which was kind of interesting, is I'd go to all these seminars around the United States. And there was this guy named Chuck Lewis outside of Detroit. And Chuck had a very interesting concept when it came to wedding photography. And he'd always say, if you photograph a tacky wedding, they're going to refer their tacky friends. And his whole point was, focus on the high end of the luxury market, keep your prices high, and do less weddings and have a life. And those kind of concepts of high end, not high volume, stuck with me. And when I got into the travel business, since that was in my brain, I knew that from day one, I wanted to stay in the luxury market and not be selling, Carnival cruises and, trips to Vegas. And so that's really how it all got started. And to do that meant saying no to a lot of business. And I think that's where a lot of travel agents fail, is that people call them and say, I'm ready to do a 3-day trip to Orlando, or I want to go to Vegas, or I'm looking for a 7-day cruise under $1,000 a person. And they say yes, because it's business, but they don't realize they're actually not keeping their brain and mentality and the agency open for those high-end clients, to give those high-end clients the attention that they need by saying yes to everything. So I think that's the number one tip in the very beginning, is to say no to a lot of business so that you can be available for the right client that comes in.
Yeah, that is interesting, because we've had a couple of guests on this program talk about saying no to business, but not for that reason, for reasons of time management nowadays with the amount of business coming in. But you're the first person to tell us that dedication to a luxury agency sometimes means saying no to that kind of business.
Yeah, it's worked out well. And just yesterday, a potential client called me and she wanted to go to Alaska. And when she was telling me, Holland America, I don't really sell Holland America, so I was telling her about, Regent at $6,000 a person and Silversea, and she's just no way was going to spend $6,000 a person. So I was very sweet and helped her out. And I told her she could, book this direct, and, you want to do this and you want to do that. I wasn't rude to say, sorry, we just do the high end, but I was just basically telling her that I'm not the travel agent, for you, that I don't sell Holland America. And it works. Right now, if I had said yes to that, it would have been a, $250 commission, and it would have been 3 or 4 price changes, because their prices go up and down every 2 weeks. And I'd be miserable to make $200-300. So by saying no for that type of thing, gives you that opportunity that when that client calls and they're ready to spend $6,000 a person on a cruise, then you can give them the attention that they need to help them with their pre and their post and their air and all that good stuff, because you're not stressed out doing high volume.
All right. And I'm curious, we have like 80 other advisors on the call with us. I'm curious if that's the experience of everybody else. I'd like to hear from everybody else, but I know you've had a crazy travel schedule recently, Steve, and I want to ask about that, but I'm going to push that till the end of our conversation if we have time, because we only have about a half an hour left. I want to get into qualifying luxury clients. You mentioned the finding clients in New York Times earlier in your career. How are your clients finding in you now? I mean, we've heard a lot about people about social media, about referrals, about local events, things like that. I mean, for your agency, is there one channel that really gives you the most amount of incoming clients?
I would say the two things that when I look at the business model that I have today, I'd say the highest would be referrals. And it's always, I could tell within 5 seconds, because my clients are old, they're usually Jewish and obnoxious and crazy. And I could just tell that if, Mrs. Bornstein calls me and she's got that, New York thick accent and she's like, I'm ready to go on a cruise versus, a 27-year-old young person that maybe Googled, cruise Santa Barbara and calls me. I could just tell very early into the conversation whether they're going to be worthy of my time or whether I need to be doing that. So that is definitely, past passengers and referrals. And then the other thing that I've been very successful with is promoting me cruising with you. So I've been doing a few different email campaigns and social media campaigns. And one of them is with Jonathan over with Explora. And I was so excited about this new ship. And I think it's 15 clients coming with me on the inaugural. Jonathan will be on it. And we're just excited about a new ship, a new itinerary. I haven't really been to Norway, and really the best ways to see Norway would be on a cruise ship. So I was excited to just share this opportunity with my clients. And I was really actually excited to see how many people were really interested in doing that. And if you couldn't come, it was usually from a date, they had a date conflict, but it's been a really fun experience booking all these, clients on not only a new cruise line, but a new ship. So I'm doing that. That's just been my new focus is come with me. And as my clients are getting older, they love the idea that they've got a little, hand holding, and it works out very well.
Yeah, and I imagine the community with the rest of your clients too. It seems like that would be something that would be attractive to some people, being able to spend time with other people, maybe around their same age with their same interests. Seems like an easier selling point too.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So I want to also ask before we get into specific questions is when you do maybe have new clients come to you, why are they coming to you? I mean, I know you talked about earlier about turning down some clients who are looking for bookings, but what specifically do they want out of the relationship with you as this luxury travel advisor?
So one thing that I could brag about a little bit is I've kind of been everywhere. I travel a lot. When I take a lot of notes, and I've stayed at a lot of hotels, and I've been to a lot of unique cities, and especially cities that touch cruises. And if it's a brand new client, first of all, I want you to know that since I am a digital nomad and I've got crazy hours, I really have kind of encouraged my clients to text me or email me. And if it's a brand new client with an email, I do like to pick up the phone and talk to them. But I'm going to be honest with you, I really hate talking on the phone with clients. It's just so inefficient. Are you there? Are you not there? I'm at dinner. And I just feel like an email is a much better way to communicate, to tell me your passport names, when you want to go, any kind of preferences. I have like a written documentation of your preferences. But I do think it's almost mandatory that the very, very first time you're talking to a client that you need to talk to them on the phone. And the reason I say that is because I need to brag, prove, show off that this is, you're calling some guy in Santa Barbara and you live in New York, and why that's important. So I do that by, well, we want to go to Alaska. Oh, well, you don't want to do a cruise like this. Or did you think about Denali? Oh, you want to do land first so that you have the cruise afterwards as sort of your vacation, because the land portion of the Fairbanks and what have you can be very grueling. I want to throw in those little tidbits that only I could do because of my personal experience. to kind of show them that you're talking to somebody that is either been there, knows somebody, or it's going to be worthy of why you need to call me versus going to a, mass market, discount cruise center, versus me. So I'm trying to listen to their needs and then throw in a little something extra so that I can hang up the phone and think, you know what, hopefully I've given them some extra information that they're not going to find on the internet, because obviously all the cruise lines have made it very easy to just book direct. And I want to be able to show to them that, yes, you could do that, but by booking through me, you're going to pay the same price, maybe even less, because of all the extra amenities that we have. And I'm going to be able to enhance it with pre, post, private shore excursions and things like that.
Yeah, and I know I see some comments in the chat and people are surprised that you prefer to text. I mean, just playing devil's advocate there, Stephen, do you ever get pushback on that from your clients? I mean, when you're communicating via text, like, does it ever feel from their point of view that they could just simply be doing this themselves, like you mentioned, through a cruise line's direct website?
I mean, I have booked $300,000 world cruises over a text message.
Okay.
I think seriously that even my little old ladies in San Diego love the whole little text thing, or, but you have to understand that I'm not just texting for that. I'm sending them a happy birthday text. I'm reminding them of final payment. They're on the trip and I'm saying, hey, how's your trip going? So it's kind of like I'm in their phone as a friend that they're booking a cruise with. It's not some big agency and I'm an extension 154. I've created a rapport with these people. And the other comment that I want to say is, if you really want to be in this luxury, and it's not Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, it's just not. If somebody texts you on a Sunday night at 7 p.m. and you're free, to respond, I'm not going to wait till Monday at 9 a.m. to respond to a text message. But you have to be okay with that mentality. It's not for everyone. Some people do want to walk into an agency 9 o'clock on Monday morning and then log out, Friday at 5. I don't think that's going to work too much with your luxury clients. So as long as you're up for going outside of the normal hours, and I'm not working 60 hours a week. I'm working a lot. I'm not even working 40 hours a week, but I'm definitely not working 9 to 5. So I think it's important that if you do get into this mentality of texting or emails, that you are going to be responding to clients outside of normal hours. And they are very impressed when Sunday morning they say, hey, Steve, we're thinking about a new river cruise on the Rhine next year. What do you suggest? And within 5 minutes, I'm sending them an email, with a couple suggestions. I think getting back to people at that level is very important.
And I see a lot of great comments in the chat about that, Stephen. I want to grab a couple before we get into having that phone call conversation. I want to talk a little bit about those things, like how people can improve on that. But we have some great comments about particularly starting your career in luxury travel, luxury cruising. And one is from Rita, who she once said, I would like to know how many luxury cruises Stephen did before selling them. She said she's going on her first, but I'm still advertising them and speak about them. So I guess you talk a lot about your experience, how that helps you with clients. I mean, what would you recommend for people who are just getting into the segment? How wet do they have to get their feet before they really consider themselves an expert? Yeah.
So back, I started in 1989, in early 90s. There was, Joel Abel had, Travel Trade magazine, and he used to do these cruise-a-thons. And you could see, 10 ships in 2 days, I mean, I think they still do things like that, but I don't think it's at the caliber of, the way it was, back in the 90s. And so that was a wonderful way for me to say, oh God, you don't want to go on that ship. I saw it. It's a dump, that type of thing. So I think when a ship comes into port, it's urgent. You got to get on that ship. You got to taste the food. You got to spend, a few hours on it. And then of course you got to cruise on them. If that's your thing, and you just got to call your rep and say, hey, I want to get on your cruise. I've never sold a luxury cruise before. I hear Seabourn's the best. I hear Explorer is the best. What are some opportunities? And I'm going to tell you that even today, the cruise lines are still very open to getting travel agents on for, I was just in Japan, and I think I paid $100 a day per person for a Windstar cruise, 10 days around Japan. How great is that? I mean, they'd rather have spent, bring in a few $1,000s and know that I potentially could sell the product than leaving those cabins empty. So also, if you're part of a consortia, being a host, that type of thing, I try to do that once a year. So I do think it is important, but if you are just starting out, if you could get to one of those, cruise-a-thons and walk through the ships and see the difference between a Royal Caribbean versus a Seabourn and really kind of appreciate the difference, I think that would be really important, early in the career.
Yeah, and I know even cruise lines outside of the luxury segment are always very, very welcoming to getting agents on board, particularly if you're living on Port City. Like I know here in New York, there's a ton of opportunities to get on board ships.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk about, you mentioned you do like to have that initial conversation with new clients to sort of figure out what's best for them. And I know the luxury cruise market is becoming bigger. I mean, we spoke about Explorer. I know there's more luxury lines coming in onto service over the next couple of years. What's important for you to know when you're speaking to a new client in order to be able to place them on the appropriate ship, on the appropriate destination, itinerary, cabin, things like that? I mean, what do you try to get out of them during that first conversation?
So I really try to get a barometer of how much they know. You'd be surprised how people get, 9 Viking brochures and they think that they know the whole river cruise industry because of Viking. And I'm not a fan of Viking. I don't think that's on the luxury end, and they're difficult to work with and they've got crazy policies. And, they're like, hi, I'm, and I'd like to book a Viking. I'm like, why? Tell me what what you think you know about it. And then I could then say to them, well, yes, that's true, or yeah, maybe, but you really need to look at this. So I do try to steer people towards more upscale, not just to make more money, because I just know that the more you spend, generally, you're going to have a better experience. And that's just been kind of a golden rule. I've had people come back from trips, not a lot, but once in a while, somebody that just stayed at a 2-star hotel or didn't do this or didn't spend the money on the junior suite or whatever. And they're just unhappy. But I don't get complaints. I don't get issues of people missing this or, missing their cruise. I insist that they have to come in the day before, so I think as much as it sounds crazy, but the more people spend, it's actually an easier trip to plan and you're going to have a higher rate of satisfaction. So that's another reason why, if I send on people on a cheaper cruises or a Viking or whatever, I tend to get complaints. And I don't like that. I don't want that. So the biggest thing that I try to do, let's say a client calls and they have no information about anything, or they're just saying, I've always wanted to go on a cruise. The best way to qualify them is to ask them about their last vacation. Just tell me about your last vacation. Oh, well, we stayed at a Hyatt and then we went over to, this all-inclusive and then we went, or are they saying, oh yeah, well, I grew up with my parents always taking us to a Four Seasons hotel and we're looking to stay at a something like that. Maybe we don't have that kind of money, but we really want to, do a cruise that's going to touch, Italy or Europe or, just let them do the talking. It's really important that they feel like they have given you everything to make a good decision. But if they're basically saying, inexpensive things and then you throw at them a seaborne cruise or, a Regent or what have you, you're going to already feel a disconnect. It gives some sign of some, luxury touches in their vacation so they can see the value, in spending more money.
I mean, so I guess what you're saying is somebody who has traveled maybe a land vacation and then stayed in the high-end hotels and then spent a certain price point or a certain amount of money, that gives you a good feeling that they'd be appropriate for a luxury cruise line simply because they understand the value of what they're paying for.
Or was raised in that kind of environment. Kids that are raised with, wealthy parents, technically, traditionally want to take more of a luxury vacation themselves, So, yes, it could be hard when it comes to budget, but there are kind of, the worst cabin on a 5-star ship to me is better than, the best cabin on a 2-star ship, type of a thing. So there are ways to kind of sneak into that luxury market without going crazy. Or, I'm sure you all know there's always deals out there, so maybe it's going to take waiting for a 5-star cruise line to, offer something really low so you can, get an experience. And I'm telling you, man, once you get on a ship where you're not waiting in line to get off the ship, where shore excursions might be included or more on the high end, where tips are included, where drinks are included, it's hard to go back to, a Royal Caribbean or a Celebrity or a Norwegian Cruise Line, that type of thing.
All right. I guess getting them to that level is the biggest challenge, especially for new advisors, making clients interested enough and be willing to spend enough to get on those luxury ships to experience the product for themselves. That seems like the biggest task.
Absolutely. So you're not going to start with, talking to somebody and getting them right into a seaborne cruise, but maybe you work them into a suite on Celebrity or, the Haven on NCL, things like that. So there are ways to kind of move people up slowly. And yeah, it's not overnight. It's not like day one you start and you're selling just, the high end stuff. But I have found that as, I've had clients now for 20 years that they did start in, suites or nicer rooms on the big monster boats. And now they're, oh my God, I would never go on a ship like that. Or you do something like Oceania. I mean, God, that's really one of the best values out there. I love those guys. The ships are, but again, you need to know as an advisor, don't put them on the older renovated boats, blow them away on one of the new ones. But you have to know the new ships are way different, way better. You need to know that if you're going to put them on the older ship, you would never put them in a regular room. You got to put them in a penthouse because the regular rooms are tiny. So there are ways to move. There are things. I consider Oceania a wonderful luxury product, really good value. And that's the other thing. You got to book it a year ahead of time or 9 months ahead of time. You're not going to get a nice room 3 months ahead of time on Oceania. So there are what I consider 5-star products that can that you can introduce them to without going to the high end on day one.
All right, so there's 2 other things I want to ask about, Stephen, when it comes to what's important for these luxury clients. And we spoke about price point. I want to talk about cruise ship sizes. You mentioned mega ships, and I think mega ships have a certain reputation. And I know the luxury cruise industry runs the gambit between super small ships and maybe medium or smaller to medium sized ships. I mean, how important is capacity to your luxury clients? Is it ever a deal breaker to them when there is maybe a bigger ship out there?
Yeah, I mean, look at the success of Crystal Cruises prior to the last 2 years. That these clients, Crystal did a great job of doing like a cruise within a cruise with their penthouse. And so what Crystal gave people were more options, because if you go on a ship with 200 people, as much as people think that that's ultra luxury, how wonderful is it that you can go on a bigger ship and you got, 3, 4, 5, 6 options for dinner instead of, 1 or 2. So you really have to qualify them in terms of why they think that a ship like the size of Explorer or Crystal, is too big. But when you really net it down, you can share with them that bigger gives you more choices. And I think choices are luxury, is luxury. So it's not all about the size of the ship as much as it is the amenities on the ship and size of staterooms. I'm tired of people saying, oh, I'm never in my room. Yeah, but if you're in your room and you're 300-400 square feet, you're way happier than 120 square feet. So it's really important to talk about not just the size of the ship and how much crew is on and how, the food, but also the size of your stateroom.
I'm just curious. I mean, when you do get that pushback about size of the ship, I mean, what are the usual complaints when they're thinking about that kind of booking? Is it just simply too big of a ship, too many people?
I have these purists, that just think that a ship, at 200, 300, 400 is the way to go. And they're like, I think in their mind, they want that kind of private yacht experience. And I think the closest thing to that would be maybe the Ritz-Carlton yacht, Sea Dream, but even Seabourn, their new ships are much bigger and they're wildly successful. And I'd actually prefer to be on a bigger ship, on the bigger ships on Seabourn, because they are, newer. You've got the extra Thomas Keller restaurant, things like that. So I really think, to me, when people call number one importance is itinerary.
Okay.
It's not even the ship, because who cares if you're in the master suite on a ultra luxury ship if it's going to somewhere you don't care about? So I really do first focus on itinerary. And then once we've honed in on where they want to go, then we'll look at, 2-3 ships and try to compare and contrast, the differences that way.
Okay. All right. And I see we have a lot of good questions. I hope we answered a couple through those last two answers. And there's a couple more hopefully we can grab as we go along. But the last thing I want to ask about, Stephen, is when you're qualifying your new clients, is age. I mean, you mentioned you have a certain age range with your clients now. Does it ever feel like when you get someone with a certain amount of age or life experience and they're more appropriate for X brand or this brand? I mean, we've seen over the last 5 or 6 years this proliferation of cruise lines trying to market to maybe younger generations, but it still seems like these luxury cruises are filled with people who are maybe the retired age.
I'm not a fan of wealthy kids in their 20s or 30s. And it's just because I've just had such bad luck. They think they know everything. Everything you say to them, they're going to challenge you on. They're going to find it cheaper. They're going to find it with this. I'm not saying they're not good clients. They're not good clients for me, because the ratio of work to commission is just too high. It just is. Whereas my 50, 60, 70, 80, 90-year-olds, when I tell them that they need to stay at the, Ritz-Carlton here or the Four Seasons here or whatever, they just listen. They trust me. There's this sense of, I want to have a human intervention when it comes to planning my trips. Whereas people in their 20s and 30s, and it's just the way they were raised. I could do this online. I don't need you, So how does that feel as a travel advisor, to feel like, they could just do it on their own and they know more than you? It's, so yeah, sure, I can make some decent money, but they don't trust you. They think that a AI or a computer or a website is, they're going to get a better value or a better deal or whatever. You know what? Go for it. But I do then tend to want to have more of the older clientele because of that trust issue and feeling of, oh, Steve's going to take care of me. And, I'm just going to hand it all over to Steve and let him and his staff, plan the trip for us. And it makes a big difference. Really does.
So I do want to ask about a couple land questions, just because I know you do some pre and post, Stephen. But we do have a question earlier that we missed from Sandra, which I think is a pretty good question. And she just wants to know, how successful have you been upselling your Oceania or Azamara clients to maybe a Regent or a Seabourn? Like, is that something that's fairly common for you?
It's funny. I don't even do it. They do it themselves. They get the email from Regent that says, you're going to get business class and you're going to get, your shore excursions and you're going to get tips. And they call me and they go, Steve, we've always been on Oceania. Let's try that Regent one. They're doing a 2-for-1. They're doing this. They're doing that. And I'm sorry. It's like, I can't even brag about me being a great salesperson. Like, people have make that decision themselves before they even call me.
Yeah.
Or we're debating between 2 or 3 and they just feel like, you know what, we just retired, we want to do something, and they feel like spend more money, more happiness, and they feel like better return on investment to actually spend more. So remind me what the question was.
Yeah, I mean, just upselling online.
Right.
Yeah.
So sometimes, and I got to give it to the cruise lines. My clients are married to the brand. They just are. I can't get my Regent clients off a Regent. Regent's done this fabulous job with, on your 10th cruise, you get this, and on your 20th cruise, you get this. So if anything, it's not upselling from an Oceania to a Regent. It's upselling from a Regent regular room to a penthouse. That type of thing is where I'm like, hey, maybe it's time to, look for a little bit more money. I'd rather get you on the front of the ship in a bigger room than in the middle of the ship in a smaller room, type of a thing. So I don't honestly feel like I'm doing too much upselling these days, that I think people themselves have turned their mind to saying, you know what, it's time, honey, we should spend more money, and they're upselling themselves.
All right. Okay. So again, we'll have a little more time at the end for questions. I see there's a lot more in there. Hopefully we've answered most of them, but
yeah, I did see one about service fees, and I make so much money on these cruises. I just do. I mean, I looked right before I got on this, and my average commission for this year is $4,000, per booking. And I just don't feel a need to charge $200-300 to book this cruise. Are there times where I'm like, damn, I wish I charged them money, because they're a pain in the ass, or they canceled or whatever. But if you look at the total overall, happiness of my clients and them coming back every year, I just don't. Now, if you do call me and you want to plan a, 7 days through Provence, and you're going on a cruise where I'm maybe only making $1,000 or $2,000, I will charge you. I got to make it worth my while, or I want to turn it back over to them. If they think they kind of, want to plan it themselves, then, fine. But I don't have like a $50 booking fee or a $100 booking fee or a $300 booking fee, that type of thing, just because I'm a low volume, high profit, type of agency. And I just think that level of clientele doesn't want to be nickel and dime. Will I charge them for flights if it's a coach or a business class where I don't make any money? Absolutely. But honestly, I use Centrav a lot. They have these phenomenal net cruise fares for flights. I'm usually sometimes making $1,000 or $2,000 per ticket on just an airline, just on the flights. So am I going to charge another $100? I could, but I just don't. That's just, I've been doing this for so long. I've just not really gotten into that whole fee schedule.
Yeah, and I know we've had advisors on here who have both perspectives. Some share with you, Stephen, and then others won't talk to a client without getting something agreed for. But it is interesting to sort of see the differences, because I know it's important. All right, so we're running out of time, but I don't want to have this whole conversation just exclusively about cruise. I just want to ask a couple of questions about pre or post. You mentioned the other day when we were talking about this that pre or post and air, there's a lot more work for you involved. how are those conversations different when you do need different details to place someone in an appropriate pre or post stay, as opposed to getting them on board a cruise ship?
So this is, again, only you're going to be able to have these conversations with having a lot of personal experience as a travel agent. And so then I can say the next sentence, which is, I'm basically telling them where to stay, but I'm telling them where to stay because I've stayed there. So, if you're going to stay in, cruise starts in Lisbon, I want you to stay at the Barrio Alto. If your cruise starts here, I'm going to have you start here, So it's my personal experience telling them, this is the hotel to stay at. I know my clientele. I know they like the 5-star hotels, but I also know that there's a lot of old, unrenovated, what's considered the best hotel in the city. And I'll tell right away, no, you don't want to stay there. They haven't touched that hotel in 10 years, that type of thing. So it's more of, it's just easy for me. There's only so many cruise ports around the world, and I've been to most of those. So if you're starting in, Sydney, I know where to put you. And if you're starting in Auckland, I know where to put you. And I hopefully have a relationship with those hotels through our signature hotel, or I've met with that hotel when I went there. So I will definitely tell people, no way am I sending you to that city and you're going to get right on the ship. I want people to do 2 or 3 nights pre. And then many times I'll say, oh, the cruise ends in XYZ. You know what, guys, there's nothing in that city. Just come right home, type of thing. So I can explain to them where it's worthy of, what cities are worthy to stay pre and post, or what you're missing, or maybe you need to take a quick flight here pre or post because the ship's not going there because it's too far inland. But I'm basically telling people, it sounds kind of, transactional, but if you're going to go on this cruise, I'm going to book you here and here, and you're going to stay here, and you're going to have this guide when you get into Bali, and you're going to use this airline, and you're going to go business class. And I sort of can, with my eyes closed, plan a, 5-star luxury trip where you're going to come back really blown away. But it's also because I've been there and I've done it, or I've had other clients stay there, and I take a lot of good notes.
We've had, I said this is episode 73. We've done a lot of doubles and some triples. So we probably had about 100 advisors on this. I think you truly stand out, Stephen. The no fees, the texting, luxury only. It seems like you have a very specific business that obviously works very well for you. Does it feel like that to you? Do you feel unique in the industry when you talk to other colleagues?
I'm really blessed because I have this very profitable, luxury end of the market. But again, from day one, that was going to be my goal. I didn't start this company thinking I'm going to work for a big major, company and just sell everything. So, I guess, I'm trying not to toot my horn too much, but yeah, it's been a great, 32-year run. And yeah, the COVID was, devastating. But I just love the fact that I have these connections with the cruise lines. And when a cabin's sold out, or I really need something, I know because I'm focusing on 5 or 6 cruise lines, that I've got that go-to person there that I can beg for whatever I need. And I think that's the other thing we haven't really touched upon, is just the relationships with the vendors. And it's very important. So by putting all your clients at that one hotel, you now have a relationship with them. And it's prices have gone up. Hey, can you give me a better deal? Or can you upgrade my client? That type of thing. So I think the relationships as a travel advisor with your vendors is another reason why I'm so successful, because I've been able to get people, on sold out sailings, or get them upgraded, or get a price that has expired, or got a promotion that no longer is there, so those type of things you can do when you just focus on, 5 or 6 vendors.
I know we've done some on building supply relationships and things like that. So hopefully if anyone does want more information on that, they can check out like I mentioned, another plug for this series. But the last one, I'm going to grab this one from Rita, Stephen, and then I think we're going to wrap up because we're running out of time. But Rita asks about your client's preference when it comes to a luxury line like a Seabourn or a Regent versus a river cruise line. It seems to me like that would be destination focused as opposed to ship focused or ways of travel focused. I mean, is that what your clients really feel when they're asking for this kind of stuff? River cruise versus a luxury ocean liner?
Well, I mean, people are not calling me saying, I want to be on a Regent cruise. I just don't care where they go. They're definitely looking at the itinerary first. And then because of that itinerary, I'm now looking to see which ships are going there. So it's really destination first, then ship, then, cabin category, that type of thing. I also have, this is not a 3-month, ahead of time kind of vacation. I've got a lot on the books for next year. I'm booking stuff a year out, sometimes 2 years out if it's a world cruise and what have you. So I think the other thing that when I talk to other travel agents that do a lot of air and they're like, well, Steve, that's cute that you just made $2,000, but you're not getting paid for 18 months. But I'd still rather wait 18 months to make $2,000 than, $300 on a flight that's leaving next week. So, the mentality of the luxury market is you have to understand that you are not going to get paid for a long time. So that's just another thing that you have to kind of keep in mind for cash flow, is that it is a very, far out, we're booking things, pretty far out.
All right. And then the last one, I know you mentioned your travels, and I know you've been in a number of different places in a number of different time zones over the last few weeks. We've been hearing running up to this summer travel season that things are going to be pretty hectic at the airports, that crowds are going to be enormous. And just from your last few weeks, how has it been out there with people, with clients ready to travel? I mean, what should they be aware of when they're
I have the complete opposite story. Like I was in Japan for 5 weeks and I think I saw 2 Americans. Like everyone, you call the DMCs in Japan, they're like, oh, we're not taking any more business. Where are these people? Like, I honestly don't know. It doesn't really, I don't feel that at all. Okay. So Japan was fine. I'm now right in Israel. Again, it doesn't seem like there's, I mean, obviously for Israel, I think why there's a lot of tourists that canceled their trips. But again, if you just follow those rules, get to the airport 2 to 3 hours ahead of time and book your flights, 11 months out, you're not going to, it said, this is the beauty of booking trips way out, as I do have pick of the litter. Whereas I do kind of feel a little sorry for some of my colleagues that are booking, last minute trips because things are sold out. Things are ridiculously overpriced. Things are, crazy right now. But I personally don't feel that because I book things so far ahead of time that I'm the first guy on, booking the flights and the hotels and the transfers. I will warn everyone, and maybe you know this already, but finding guides throughout the world is really difficult. I think so many guides gave up that career and went back to being a school teacher or whatever during COVID. And that's probably my biggest challenge right now, is that if you're looking to do private car and drivers, or you want a guide to walk you around London or whatever, you cannot wait until like the week before or 2 months before. It's like you got to book this stuff far out now. So that's really I'm seeing that more of an issue than than airports being too crowded or what have you.
All right. Well, I know we're pushing, you're in Tel Aviv, you said you were pushing 8 or 9 or 10 o'clock. So we're going to wrap up. I want to thank you, Stephen. It was really a unique conversation we had, and I really enjoyed it. I hope everyone on the call enjoyed it too, but you really gave us some great perspective, and I hope everyone learned from you today. My pleasure. I love this, and I hope to be doing it for another, maybe not 30 years, but a little bit longer, thanks. Well, again, thank you so much. Thanks to Jonathan and Explorer too. And I know we dropped the link to Explorer in the chat. Check them out. And we're taking a little break for this series in the summer. We'll see you back in July, the middle of July. And until then, I hope everyone has a great sort of big kickoff to your summer. And for all you Canadian agents, I hope to see you in Toronto next week too. So thanks again to everyone. And we'll see you pretty soon. Awesome. Thanks, guys. That was a lot of fun. Thanks. See ya.